Well, good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 16 of the Rings of Power Wrap-Up.
Everyone, it's time to pull up a bench here in the common room. I'm James Tauber, the Sage of the South.
And I'm Sara Brown, Shield Maiden of Rohan, and we're both here with the Man of the West, Alan Sisto.
Thank you. Tonight, folks, we're going to be talking about the episode named Adar. You know, because a blurry version of it shows up in the last 5 seconds.
Yep, indeed. So a quick welcome for those of you joining us for the first time. Here at the Rings of Power Wrap-Up, we talk about the plot, characters, and the lore behind Amazon's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power.
And we'll also dive into some of Tolkien's biggest themes, things like mortality, free will, and fellowship, with this episode, maybe sunscreen and canine behavior, and do our fair share of speculating.
You'll learn something new about Middle-earth every time you listen, and we hope you have a few laughs in the process. We're glad you've joined us.
And we hope you'll be glad you joined as well. Before we talk about this week's episode, we want to remind you that if you want some company as you read the books that Tolkien wrote, you should check out Alan's original show, The Prancing Pony Podcast.
For over 6 years and 5 million downloads, Alan and his co-host Sean Marchese walked their way through Tolkien's Legendarium, from the Silmarillion to the Hobbit, and this season, the podcast is starting The Return of the King.
And I gotta admit, sometimes it's hard to believe. Now, some say that the PPP is the finest Tolkien podcast this side of Bree. And while Sean has recently stepped down as co-host, I am still there. And this season, I'm going to be co-hosting episodes with folks like the Tolkien professor, Corey Olsen, Matt from the Nerd of the Rings YouTube channel, and Sean Gunner, the chair of the Tolkien Society. In fact, James and Sara here are each going to co-host a few episodes with me later this season as well. Honestly, I'd like to think there's no better companion for your extended trip to Middle-earth than the Prancing Pony Podcast.
Now, before we get to this week's release, do we have any clarifications to make from last week's episode?
Yeah, maybe. I like the way you put that, though. Not corrections. We never have corrections because, of course, we can't make mistakes.
Absolutely not.
Well, we do have some. Sara, you want to talk us a little bit through Christine Larson's post about the astronomy?
Oh, yes. Now, we mentioned Christine Larson, Professor Christine Larson, in our last episode recap, and she has had a lot to say about the astronomy that we've seen so far.
Yes. Yeah.
Some of it has been quite complimentary, others not so much. But what she's been focusing on, of course, is Sadoc's book.
Yes.
In which he has what she calls the Big Book of Accumulated Harfoot Wisdom, TM. And she has seen symbols related to the sun and the moon.
Yep.
And she's recognized at least 2 constellations from our own world, Cygnus the Swan, and most of all, Scorpius the Scorpion, which I think that's really interesting. And she says that would make sense as these are prominent constellations seen in the summer. So, yeah, so that seems to be fitting the season.
Which is when they'd be migrating and doing their stuff. Right.
Right. Okay. So she tracks those through the book and she sees also a path curving relative to some of the stars in the book. So there's 3 in a row, which she thinks sort of look like Orion's belt from a weird angle. But there is a 4th star that the line itself passes through, so she's not sure that's exactly what it meant to be.
Okay.
So she's taking her time picking through these and seeing what she can see. Now, she had some interesting things to say about the meteor, and she has a theory that perhaps there's more than one meteor.
I've seen that as well. I've seen a few people mention that just because of the places where it seems to have been visible.
Right. And so it seems to have been visible over what she says is way too long a distance, and the path doesn't make sense if you look at who sees it in what order. So that would be interesting if there's actually more than one meteor, and we've just seen the crash landing of one of them.
It would certainly lend itself to the theory that these are the Astari being sent over, if that's the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, it could just also be terrible astronomy, and let's just do a single meteor and show everybody seeing it. Right.
Yes, indeed. The constellation that the stranger makes at the moment, she says it's nothing that's recognizable, possibly a little bit sort of from the what she calls the teapot of Sagittarius, but it's not really that recognizable to her.
Okay.
But then she looked at the ones from this episode that we're looking at today.
Yeah. Let's talk about that then.
Yeah, she says it's really interesting because you see much clearer pages from Sadoc's book. She recognizes there's a scene where when Nori is flicking through it, And in the top left-hand part of the picture, she recognizes one constellation that is Lyra the Harp.
Okay.
She sees Scorpius again. And then there seems to be almost a backwards Big Dipper, so she's not sure about, why that might be. But she says that there's a possibility that other groups could be pieces of constellations or even reverse images. And if they were reverse images, then the skies would indeed be strange, wouldn't they?
That's true. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, indeed. So to sum that all up, though, what she's saying is that she says it's more important that we recognize what these images are suggesting than the actual stars they might represent. And this is proof of what she calls archaeoastronomy or cultural astronomy in the Second Age among the Harfoots. They would be careful observers of the night sky. They would know its seasonal patterns, etc. And then the last thing, of course, the delightful Easter egg of Sadok talking about beings who were turned into stars.
Oh, yes. I think we'll definitely be mentioning that in the Harfoot thread. I was very pleased by that. I couldn't wipe the smile off my face.
Yeah. The one thing that she's really interested in is in the book, she sees a clustering of stars that are aligned in two slightly curved lines with a connection between them. And her gut reaction to that is Gemini.
Oh, interesting.
Now, if that's the constellation of Gemini, that is interesting, because does that indicate twins? A second comet? Something going on there?
Perhaps the two blue wizards. Maybe.
Yeah. So anyway, obviously, she's only seen what she's seen and can only interpret what she's seen so far. But there's some interesting stuff there from Christine.
Well, we'll be sure to post a link to her blog posts in the show notes. So we'll reference both the one in which she discussed the stars from episodes 1 and 2, as well as the one from last night's. All right, James, we've also got some information on the linguistics, don't we?
We certainly do, and I would recommend people take a look at Wizardway Chris on Twitter. They have a wonderful thread going through all sorts of translations of snippets of text that we've seen so far in the episodes. So that's definitely worth a look.
There's a lot there. I mean, we could start summing it up, but we'd be here for 20 minutes. Yeah. So that's Wizardway Chris, K-R-I-S, Wizardway K-R-I-S, and absolutely worth the time. Take a look at the master thread that they've put together is fantastic. It goes back and talks about the Khuzdul on the door to Moria, as well as all the wonderful Quenya and Sindarin that we've been hearing. So I do have a couple of quick corrections. One, we talked about excitedly the bridge in Khazad-dûm possibly being the bridge, the one that we see later, of course, when the Balrog is confronted by Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. Of course, that bridge would be at the eastern side of Moria, near the exit towards Lothlorien, towards the Mirror. Elrond, of course, entered from the west side, so this is just an entry bridge. And then another correction we had, James talked about how the clouds rolling back as Galadriel was preparing to enter Valinor was reminiscent of what Gandalf said to Pippin. Here's the thing. The language about the clouds rolling back and the silver glass and the far green country, that is all in the text, but it's not actually part of a dialogue. It's not something that Gandalf would have said to Pippin. We were just conflating our memories of the book with the films, because that is, of course, a Jackson film moment. So I think that's it for our corrections and clarifications and addendums and all of that good stuff. So I think we should go ahead and just jump right into the storylines. Maybe a touch of episode recap first, though, right? What do we get today?
Well, this is a really interesting episode because we focus on really just half of the locations.
That's true.
But we get to see Númenor. And so we get to spend a lot more time with a bunch of new characters, filling out pretty much, I think, with maybe one or two exceptions, all of the other characters that we got those character posters for. So we introduced a bunch of characters. We get to see Númenor, and it was a really fun episode. I think.
Boy, did we ever. Númenor was amazing. But you're right. We just had those really 3 locations, didn't we?
Yeah, we've got Arondir in the camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we've got Númenor itself, and then we do get some lovely stuff with the Harfoots that we've already alluded to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course, Númenor, we do get more than just one place in Númenor. We get Armenelos, but we also get that glorious ride that we'll get to in a little bit to see some of the landscape of Númenor itself, of the island. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go and start with the storyline that appears first, and that's the one about Arondir and the orcs, or Adar, as the show's title suggests. And I wanted to just start by pointing out that, hey, that cool orc that we see at the beginning, the skinny one, his name is Vrath, if you look at the X-ray when you're watching on Amazon Prime. He's played by none other than Jed Brophy, who was Nori in the Hobbit films and played, at least 2 or 3 different orcs in Jackson's Lord of the Rings films. Also happens to be a really cool guy, friend of the show, and somebody I actually happen to get to spend some time with at San Diego Comic-Con. So howdy, Jed. Good job.
What did we think of the fact that they've gone with the Peter Jackson style Cockney accents on the orcs?
Yeah, I'm struggling with that a little bit.
I was a little disappointed that they didn't try to do something different.
Yeah. The implication that they're just not as cultured as others.
Even down to, I think at one point something's described as stinking.
Yes.
And
maybe a few too many callbacks. Yeah.
We haven't quite got meats back on the menu, boys, but
it was dangerously close. It was dangerously close.
It was, yes. But what does interest me, that it is a bit different, is the way in which they look visually.
Yes.
They do look very different to Peter Jackson's orcs. I find that really interesting. I mean, what do we think about how that's being presented in comparison?
Combine that with the way they represented the weakness to the sun, which seemed to be even stronger than what we see in the Jackson films. There was a real fear. You could get that sort of physical reaction when they were exposed to the sun. You could almost hear their flesh cooking a little bit. Clearly, they want nothing to do with the sun.
The audio description when they're under the sun actually says flesh burning.
Oh, that's a charming sound. Yeah.
Yes.
I love the smell of crispy orc in the morning.
It's the smell of victory.
Presumably these people, the prisoners that they have, are the people of Horden.
It sure looks that way, yeah.
The village that was empty when Bronwyn and Arondir went there.
And possibly other villages even further east
Possibly
or
other
south,
villages as well.
Yeah.
But we get the shocking discovery that Arondir is not the only elf.
Oh, I know. That was a shocker.
I visibly gasped.
When we saw that it was, his watchmate as well as the commander, I just, what? Not even possible. How did that happen?
Yeah. That was really stunning. And I must admit that for a couple of seconds there, the jaw was on the floor. But I thought that was, that's really interesting, because clearly these are 3 now soldiers together.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with that? And as we can see, obviously they did do something with that.
Yes, they did.
One of the things that I thought was interesting initially, the conversation that they're having when the 3 of them first meet, is they talk about Adar. And they raise the question of why the orcs are calling their leader an elf name.
Yes.
Father.
And that is a good question.
Elf for father. So, but then they immediately jump to their theory that it's Sauron.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting that right away in their eyes, they're setting up Adar to be Sauron.
Which is interesting, because the show seems to be trying to give us multiple opportunities.
Yeah.
Adar is Sauron. Oh, wait, maybe the stranger is Sauron. Oh, wait, maybe Halbrand is Sauron. I don't remember what I did last week. Maybe I'm Sauron.
The thing is, though, I mean, are we really going to have Sauron and another big bad down in Befordor? That's kind of strange. I'm not sure, unless, of course, the Adar big bad is somebody who is like a lieutenant of Sauron.
Yeah. I'm assuming it's going to go that way.
Yeah. I mean, revealing Sauron this early seems a bit odd. But yeah, that's really interesting. But I have things to say about the use of the word Adar, actually, in this particular episode. Okay. And it is interesting that it's kind of left hanging by the elves. Why would they use the word Adar? And then it sort of isn't really gone into at all. No. But one thing about this episode is it's a lot about fathers. There's a lot about fathers in this episode. If you have a look really carefully,
you've right.
got, So first of all, when we get to Númenor, we've got Queen Regent Miriel's father, who apparently is still alive. We're obviously going to talk about that.
Yeah. Unnamed, but presumably Tar Palantir, hopefully.
Well, hopefully it's Tar Palantir, although the fact that he's alive is interesting. So we'll have to get to that.
Well, that's why she's the regent,
Right. Okay. So we've also got Elendil.
Yep.
And he is father to Eärwen and Isildur and Anarion, who seems to be not there at the moment, maybe.
So not appearing in this season.
Not appearing in this season.
We'll talk about that.
He's off. So we'll have to talk about that. But it just seems to me that there's quite a lot about fathers and father figures. going on here. And of course, when we get to the Harfoots, Nori's father,
Nori's dad,
which is a very central part of the story in this particular episode, because it's will he be left behind and all of that kind of thing. So I just think it's really interesting that the episode is called Adar, and we do get a figure called Adar, but there's quite a bit about fathers. So I thought I'd put that out there.
That also ties into certain theories about who Halbrand might be.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Which we will get to, I'm sure.
Who's your daddy, Theo? Who's your daddy?
Similar anger issues, but we'll come to that.
Yes, very similar anger issues.
Oh, yes.
We'll get to that thread in a bit. Yeah, sticking with this one, obviously they get the escape plan. The watch commander suggests here's what we're going to do. One of us above the tree line, return in force. As they're talking about that, of course, Lurka, the Lurtz version of a first age or second age orc comes out and starts threatening them. Then we get a moment that I think really, really strongly reflects the elves and their position vis-a-vis nature. Right?
Yes.
They're willing to confront the orcs, who are their captors, who have control over their lives and deaths, to say, no, I am not going to cut down that tree. That tree has earned its place in this world, and we're not going to take it down. And I think we're seeing right away that elves are being positioned as, friends to trees, friends to the environment. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable the extent to which Revion, the watch leader, essentially goes against the orcs.
Oh, yeah.
For the sake of the tree.
Yeah.
And gives that speech about the tree deserving to stay where it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gutsy call. It ends up costing the life of Medor, but it's a gutsy call. And boy, is that a tense scene there or what? When Magrot, the one wearing the elf helmet, comes out and offers them the water. First you're thinking it's poison, it's some terrible thing, but no, it's actually water, but it is just a distraction. It's there so they can kill somebody and make their point.
And the violence has really kicked up in this
Yes,
episode, actually.
I was surprised at that. Starting with that throat slit, but continuing on.
Yeah, the warg had some chompy things to do there.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll get to the warg later.
Yes.
I was impressed, though, that at least it wasn't, as violent as it was, this didn't reach, let's say, Game of Thrones gore.
No.
The amount of blood that Medor spilled, before he died, and the fact that he wasn't writhing around in pain and screaming for 3 minutes was something that suggests to me, at least, that the show's going to continue to be watchable by younger folks. And I'm pleased to see that. Yes, it was violent, but it wasn't as gory as one might expect, especially in today's television. Vikings or, Last Kingdom or anything like that. Wow. Totally different.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important, actually, because, this is second age. There's violence. There's really unpleasant things.
There's a lot of violence, folks.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not like they can cut out the idea of violence.
No.
But there is a way in which you can show it, and it's sort of dialed down.
Yeah.
And you're right. I don't think they're going to hit the, do I want to say heights of Game of Thrones when it comes to violence?
The peak bleak, as the showrunners have called it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I did notice that the age label on this had gone up from, I think it was 12 for the first two to 15 for this one.
Yeah.
I am not surprised, because there is
I'm not surprised either.
Brutal arm break later on that made me
I couldn't watch that. When I was rewatching it, I had to skip this.
Yes. Dear.
That was almost as bad as the ankle break from the previous episode, where I just felt like I was watching an NFL Films, watching an offensive lineman get rolled up on. Yeah, that was painful.
Yeah, that was nasty.
I do think it was interesting that this did give Arondir a chance to get that view above the tree line,
right?
That his commander wanted him to get, but that wasn't exactly the view we were all hoping for. It was very much a World War I no man's land. Pits and vile vapors and just
shades of Isengard.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking, with the vapors coming up out of the pits. Yeah,
just the environmental destruction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
All the trees gone. Yeah, very much turning this into Mordor. Very, very, very much. This is going from before Door to Mordor pretty quickly.
It is. Yeah. So you're looking at what's possibly going to become the Plains of Gorgoroth, where it's just bleak.
Everything is dead.
Yeah. Exactly. Just these twisted bushes with maggot-ridden buds, as it says in that chapter.
Yes. Oh.
And you can see that's what is going to happen. But Revion telling Arondir to look for the nearest tree line is rather devastating, considering he gets up there and there is no tree line.
No.
Because there just aren't any trees.
So then he goes to do what he said he was going to do, right? Because Arondir doesn't want to see anybody else killed, so he volunteers to go ahead and cut down the tree. James, you have a translation for us from that Quenya that he says to the tree quietly before he
before he fells the tree, he says "Anin apsene," which is Quenya for "forgive me."
Yeah.
So this seems to be something. This seems very fitting for a Sylvan elf in particular that they would show respect for the living thing that they're about to kill. What's interesting about that particular phrase is "apsene" is actually the same verb that Tolkien used in his Quenya translation of the Lord's Prayer.
Oh, wow.
Where the Lord's Prayer says to, forgive us our trespasses.
Right.
That's the same verb, "apsene," that's used there.
A Quenya version of the Lord's Prayer. Well, that's interesting.
That's really interesting.
Love that. And yeah, I mean, even not knowing the translation when I watched it, it felt like he was saying, forgive me. I mean, what else is he going to say? Have a nice day. I mean, he's about to chop this tree down. It's he's got, as you said, a great reverence for the life of the tree. It's clearly something that the Sylvan Elves, share. His commander was the one willing to lay the lives of he and his men down to protect that tree. Mm-hmm. Well, later on in that same thread, we cut back from the Harfoots, and we'll get to those threads in a bit, because, again, we're just going to stick with one storyline at a time. We get another reminder about the sun causing the issues for the orcs. They're just really covered up. They don't want to be involved in the sun. And as they expose the orcs to the sun, that's when that escape attempt begins, doesn't it? It starts with that tug of war with the chains.
Mm-hmm. Can I just say that's some excellent use of chain there?
Yes.
But using them as weapons as well as platforms to spring off. And I mean, wow, that was very cool.
The way they would kind of whip the chain, to sort of send that shockwave back to the orcs. And then it was this brutal tug of war with the orcs trying to stay in the shade. That's when you see Arondir get that great idea. Well, if they're trying to stay in the shade, let's just resolve that problem right now. And he does, the over-the-top stuff that we've talked about. We sort of don't like it because it seems a little Legolas physics-breaking stuff, but
it didn't seem that bad. In context, it didn't seem that
I'm with you on
physics-defying.
It just seemed like a pretty impressive athletic feat. He leaps up with the axe, and he actually brings that whole structure down in order to expose the orcs to the sun.
Yep, let there be light.
Let there be light.
That's where you get the audio description of the burning flesh. I think that's the
is it?
moment.
I'm going to have to turn on subtitles for sure.
Toasty.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, they need some, SPF 250, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder what cooked orc tastes like. Tastes like chicken? Yeah, maybe.
I'm not sure I want to find out.
No.
Probably doesn't smell very good, though. A little rancid, I would imagine.
Yeah. And as the resident vegetarian in this room, I think, I'll stay away from toasted orc.
Well, I think I might have to be a vegetarian for the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
You could always try that new Beyond Orc.
Beyond Orc.
Plant-based orc substitute.
Or we could have a hot dog. Oh, how's that for a transition? That was bad. That was bad.
That was practically a dad joke.
That was awful.
That was almost as bad as the CGI.
Thank you. Oh man.
Boy.
Sorry, not sorry. Yeah. Okay, that is the first thing that I thought when I saw that thing was, wow, this CG is not up to par.
No.
And the second thing I thought is, who designed this? Is this like the Vengeance of Beverly Hills Chihuahua? This thing with the crazy eyes. I have come now to call it the Chihuawarg. I don't get the design. But anyway, feel free, jump in, talk to me about what you thought about the design of this warg, and then we'll talk about the fight itself.
Well, can I just say that the Peter Jackson wargs from 20 years ago looked more menacing and
terrifying.
Yes, and the CGI was better. I mean, did they suddenly run out of budget?
That did seem like we're out of budget for this episode. What can you do for $100?
No.
It was really pretty mediocre.
It's practically a pound stretcher warg. It's a pound shop warg.
Yeah, it really is. Oh, goodness. That was, that was not the warg that I was imagining.
No, because you get that wonderful build up to it where they go, let loose the warg, or let the warg out, or whatever.
The wargs of war.
Yeah. And you're sitting there on the edge of your seat thinking, what's going to come through that curtain? And then this comes through the curtain.
It's like a puppy warg. It's just a really angry puppy warg. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I looked at that and thought, no, really?
No, they've got to be joking me, right? This is, yeah. So, of course, there's the fight. I mean, this is when it does get a little gruesome. The warg takes some chomps out of the midsection of a couple of victims.
Oh, yes.
I did get the feeling like they could have taken this thing down a little earlier had they just all gone at once. It seemed like they were allowing one person at a time to try to take him on.
That's a little bit British, don't you think? One at a time. Let's be polite about this. It's your turn, sir. Off you go. It was a bit. Really, you've got a warg, even a Chihuawarg in front of you. One takes it from behind, the other one from the front. Two come in from the side. You don't do one at a time.
As he's taking a bite of somebody who fell, the rest of you can.
This is not the Marquis of Queensberry rules.
Marquis of Queensberry rules with a warg. I love it.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
After you, my good sir.
After you. So Revion does escape and starts to get to the top. The warg leaps up there to kill him. Arondir spears him. It's a great deal. But wow, what a moment then, right? Arondir climbs to the top. We're thinking, okay, Revion's escaped. He's going to go bring some elves in force.
Nope.
It's the Boromir moment, isn't it?
That's exactly what I thought. It's a very Boromir death. Yeah. Absolutely. Especially when the second arrow comes thunking into him. Oh. Yeah, that really did feel like the Boromir moment.
Yeah, and you could really feel the despair in Arondir there, that moment where he realizes now there is no escape. He's grabbed by the orcs and pulled back into that pit.
And he shouts, when he sees Revion fall, he cries out, Hano.
What does that mean?
That means brother.
Oh, man.
Oh, God, you just broke my heart.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Because you could see how much the death of his fellow watchmate of Methor cost him. The pain in his eyes when he was comforting him as he was dying. And now to see Revion go as well.
Oh, okay. I need 2 seconds to recover from that because...
I might need 3. That was... wow, brother.
Oh, dear. Okay. Yeah. That was awful.
That really was.
Yes, but can I just say... that the actor playing Arondir is killing it.
Isn't he?
Absolutely.
I know. They didn't just hire him because he's a pretty face, huh?
Oh, no, and he is. Let's agree on this.
I'm
he
sure.
is a pretty face. Yes, I am married, not dead. I notice these things. But wow, he is absolutely killing every scene he's in. It is magnificent.
The emotion he's able to convey is really something.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking about Galadriel last episode about how we can see it in the eyes and getting that from Arondir as well. I just think it's a stunning performance so far.
100% agree to that. So it looks like they're about to kill him. Like, well, I guess the Arondir threat is done, and that's when they tell one of the orcs says to the others, "You're going to bring him to Adar," and we finally see Adar.
For some version of C.
Well,
a very blurry version.
See, a very blurry version. Yeah. But did it look to you through that blurry version that his ears were a little larger than a human's ears, that maybe he's an elf? That's the feeling I get.
Which is why you explain why he has an elvish moniker.
It would. Yeah. That'll be an interesting storyline. And obviously, we're going to see a lot more about that line soon. But for now, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into Númenor. We're all so excited about that. So join us here in just a moment.
Okay, we're about to jump back into talking about today's episode, but we want to remind you that when you finish listening to us, the talk continues all night long at the Rings of Power wrap-up.
We have an amazing community of listeners, and they really do keep the conversation going. From the Rings of Power group on Facebook, our Twitter feed, our Reddit community, and more.
Now on Facebook, look for Rings Wrap-Up. Be sure to follow the page so that you get all of our posts, but also join the group for some great discussions on the show and on each of our episodes.
So if you're on Reddit, look us up at r/Rings Wrap-Up. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, where we're at Rings Wrap-Up.
And a quick favor to ask. If you like the show, please help us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and recommend us to your friends.
That's right. All right, folks, thanks for coming back. We're going to go ahead and dive straight into the Númenor line. We're going to pick up with Galadriel and Halbrand in the hull of a Númenorian ship. They do get up on the deck, and we see a conversation with a man who, even when you tap the little button on Amazon to see who it is, you only see the actor's name. He's not given a character name yet. But, of course, it is Elendil.
I love the answer avoidance in here and elsewhere when he says, we're nearly there, and Halbrand says nearly where, and this this figure just says home.
Speaking of home, does he have the coolest voice ever? I mean, he does. Yes. Man, wow. I would probably commit several felonies if I could, have a voice like that.
Yeah. It's pretty compelling, isn't it? You can see why he's captain of the ship anyway, because that voice is going to really command the sailors and makes me listen very closely.
I bet it does.
Yes, it does.
Galadriel also spots her dagger, by the way, which Elendil's holding. You almost felt like she was going to reach for it. She thought better of that, though. Then they arrive in Númenor. Let's talk about this place. What are your thoughts on that arrival scene, which, by the way, I had to rewind like 3 or 4 times. It was so amazing.
Isn't it beautiful? There are a few things that occurred to me. There's a lot of faces carved into the rock, but there's a couple of really huge rock figures.
Yes.
And for me, that was very reminiscent of the Argonath. It's the same sort of idea, I suppose, where you've got these very imposing figures at the entrance to this harbour.
Right.
And they are imposing, they are regal, they are dignified, and there's something that you are compelled to look up at.
Yeah.
And that's why it made me think of the Argonath.
Yeah. I think it's supposed to, certainly. I mean, that's these are, of course, the predecessors to the Argonath in that sense. I thought it was interesting. Once again, we now have certainly confirmation of what we speculated about during the trailer, which was that they're combining Rowena and Armenelos, because Armenelos, the capital, is a landlocked city, and Rowena is the harbor. And it just made more sense, I think, for them to represent that as one conglomerate city, an amalgam, just like they amalgamate so many other things. What did you all think about the architecture? What sort of feeling did you get culturally? Were you reminded of any particular historical period or historical group of people, culture or nation?
One of the funniest things was watching this the second time with my wife, who is not a book reader and has no idea of the fate of Númenor. The moment she saw it, Númenor, her comment was, "This looks like Atlantis."
Oh my goodness. That's brilliant.
And I had to tell her, I laughed, and she said, "What's so funny?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to have
Talk to me in 4 seasons.
Tell you a few spoilers." But
wow.
Yeah, so she picked up on this. I'm guessing it's just this such a height of culture and an exuberance in a maritime setting, I think, is probably what triggered those ideas of sort of an Atlantean culture.
That is really an interesting catch. I mean, for me, I was noticing all the various Mediterranean nations.
Very Greco-Roman.
The Roman Empire.
Some Byzantine elements as well.
And some Egyptian influence. Yep. There were a number of Mediterranean. It very much feels like that. It's like all those Mediterranean cultures kind of combined into one. I was especially surprised to see so many what I thought were Byzantine influences, the domed buildings in particular.
Yeah. But there were also, you can see that Minas Tirith, the Gondorian Minas Tirith, obviously drew from certain architecture elements at a much smaller scale. Yeah, that was what was impressive. If you think Minas Tirith is impressive, wait till you see Númenor.
And you're seeing all these bridges to the different islands and peninsula and all of this. Oh, incredible.
Looked very much like a Mediterranean island in that sense, that you have these hills and you build all over the hills.
Yeah, you build on all the available land because there isn't that much, right? Yeah. I love the shots where you could see the Meneltarma in the distance, the big mountain that sits at the middle of Númenor, which of course will become something very important later on. But yes, I really enjoyed those shots. We saw a few of those later on too, with Elendil and Galadriel. So of course Galadriel knows where they are, right? She recognizes this. This is the land of the star. This is Númenor. Now, Númenor doesn't mean land of the star, does it? We have a different word for that. So she says it's the land of the star, it's Númenor. Now, of course, land of the star is not represented by Númenor. Land of the star is what?
Elenna.
Elenna, Elenna, land of the star. And it is, of course, shaped like a 5-pointed star. Mm-hmm. We've seen that in the map flyovers. And, of course, I hope that we'll see more of that as we spend time in Númenor. Mm-hmm. Of course, Halbrand is completely blown away. This is light years beyond the culture of the Southlands.
Except that even though he's impressed, I noted the whole time he's looking pretty relaxed and smug.
He is. I think that's his default state.
Yeah. For somebody who's just effectively being captured, he did look surprisingly relaxed.
He looks very relaxed for a prisoner. Yes. Yeah.
You're right. For a low man, as we'll get to.
Right. And we're going to see a lot of his charm, I think, in this particular episode. And I just want to throw in here that I've been seeing on Twitter that somebody has nicknamed him Aquagorn, which I thought was particularly hilarious.
That's great. Aquagorn. That's not wrong. They really did Aragorn him up.
I was just going to say, back on the sort of Númenor backstory that we briefly get from Galadriel, we're not only told the name of the island, but also we're told, I think, a very nice summary of how the island came about.
Yep.
I thought that was really well done. It was a nice piece of exposition that wasn't shoehorned in or didn't feel shoehorned in. And she's explaining to Halbrand why it's so different from what he knows in the Southlands, that these men, that these people are not like his people, that these people were rewarded because they served the elves, whereas his people served Morgoth. So you figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then she talks about how there's been changes on Númenor.
Yes.
And she expresses her sorrow for that. And she explains to Halbrand that it's been a long time since the elves were just not allowed to land on Númenor.
Right.
So, he says, why is that? She doesn't answer him. She just says, I think we're about to find out. I wonder if that's a chunk of stuff they're not allowed to say.
Maybe. It certainly is a compression. It's what brings us to the end of the Second Age, right? It's sort of a brief summary of how the land came to be and how we're now, a couple thousand years into that Second Age where there's that hostility. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't seem like they've compressed that time. They're just assuming that stuff's already happened.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah. It's just a way of explaining it. You're right. All right, so then, of course, we get to the palace, right? They get the tree in the courtyard over Menelaus. That's Nimloth. And for those of you who maybe are catching up to the lore, that tree is a seedling of another tree, a tree by the name of Celeborn, no relation to Galadriel's husband. That tree was on Tol Eressëa and was in itself a seedling of a tree by the name of Galathilion. Now, that tree was made by the elves in the image of Telperion, which was one of the two trees destroyed by Morgoth that we saw in the prologue, if you will, at the beginning of episode 1. And for a little bit of a reminder, for those of you familiar with the Lord of the Rings, the white tree of Minas Tirith is itself descended from this tree. And I know we may don't see have the rights because it's in Unfinished Tales, but I sure hope we get some hints as to how that salvage, operation goes.
I just want to quickly point out, on the way to the palace, we see Halbrand oddly interested in some forging that's going on.
Yes,
we'll come back to
strong
that.
Attention to the smith, and we'll come back to that for sure. He also has some advice when they get into the palace. I don't know. He's suggesting things to Galadriel as though she doesn't know what she's doing, but he suggests she be quiet. Oh man. So we get a guard telling Elendil, hey, the Queen Regent's busy, Pharazôn's busy, but of course he steps aside when he notices that Galadriel's an elf, huh? Yeah. Okay, fine. I think we have an important thing to deal with here.
Right.
Just a reminder, he uses the phrase Queen Regent, and I know, Sara, you mentioned that earlier. I want to remind folks, those of us who didn't grow up under a monarchy might not know, a Queen Regent or a King Regent is the person who's not yet queen or king. They are ruling in the stead of or in the place of an actual king or queen who is either incapable of ruling or is away, incapacitated or away typically. So that would explain why she's not queen yet. She is the Queen Regent, serving in place of her father, who at this point is unnamed, though we all know it's Tar Palantir if they stick with the story.
But it's interesting that they're calling her Queen Regent,
yes,
because immediately that's telling us that her father is still alive.
Yes, it does. It immediately conveys that.
Yes, indeed. So that's really interesting. And I also found it interesting that they called Pharazôn Chancellor Pharazôn. So
Yeah, I thought it was a counselor, but chancellor.
It was Chancellor Pharazôn. So obviously he has very high importance. We know that Pharazôn is actually Miriel's cousin.
Yes.
If you go by what it says in the Unfinished Tales, etc. But the fact that he is the Chancellor, and he seems to hold a great deal of power in that room.
He sure does.
Yeah. That should immediately make us wary of what exactly is going on here. Is there a power struggle going on between Miriel and Pharazôn?
Yeah, and I think we see that there is. We're given hints. I mean, at first, I think we see that the two of them seem to be in alliance, but there are, as we progress through the storyline, moments where you may be glimpsing that that Miriel is not fully on board with Pharazôn's position.
Oh, I think Miriel is very, very clever in the way in which she approaches it. Oh,
yes.
And playing both sides.
Yes.
I
think she knows that Pharazôn really has a hold of the people. And if she crosses him now, she's not going to be able to do so successfully. That's my hunch. But we'll
By the
see.
way, the fact that they're cousins is in the Lord of the Rings appendices. So they could use that.
Oh, right. Yes, of course.
It'll be interesting to see if they do. I love the Númenorian costumes, by the way. I don't know about you, but seeing all that color in that room was just beautiful. Fantastic stuff.
Shout out also to Phil Dean.
Thank you. That was my next thing. Phil Dean, the web guru for both the Prancing Pony podcast and the Rings of Power wrap-up, was one of the Númenorian guards that you see there. So big congratulations to Phil, who worked super hard for his few seconds of fame.
Yay, Phil.
We're going to go ahead and get Phil on the show at some point. He has some amazing stories to talk about, especially working with the cast, with the actors who played Galadriel and Elendil and Miriel and Pharazôn. So we're going to get him on at some point. Fun times, but congratulations, Phil. It's good to see you on there.
So back to the colors. A lot of blue.
Yeah.
A lot of blue. Yeah. So that's clearly...
Seagoing culture, that's the big theme. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So we get the confrontation there, right? Miriel demands that Galadriel identify herself, which she does with a bold panache, I have to say.
Yes.
With many of her titles.
Yeah, there's a lovely gasp after she outs herself as Galadriel of the Noldor. She puts a lot of emphasis on Noldor.
Of the House of Finarfin, and of course the commander of the Northern armies. And I mean, she just drops it all, doesn't she?
Of High King Gil-galad, that's it. I mean, she is name dropping all over the place.
And then we get Halbrand.
Yes.
Oh, good old Halbrand.
Of the Southlands.
Yeah, I'm just of the Southlands. That's all I am.
Yeah.
Never mind that I'm a king, probably, but I don't need to tell you that.
Yeah,
right
maybe.
now.
Well, is he? We'll come to that.
But I thought it was interesting that when Galadriel first introduces herself, as soon as she says Noldor, there's gasps around the room. But then later on, there's mockery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of interesting.
That little the little puppet show in the city that we see later, for instance. Yeah.
Yeah, but also after Pharazôn said that he would rather kneecap a stallion than imprison one of the Noldor, and everybody laughs.
And then he promptly imprisons her. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, basically, right?
Yes. So if he has a stallion, I think that stallion better run because,
yeah. I don't think we can trust Pharazôn, do you?
No, I'm going with no on that one.
I'm going with no as well.
Exactly.
Galadriel has a bit of a request, right? Okay, fine. I've done what you've wanted. I've identified myself. By the way, I need a boat. I need you to send me to Middle Earth. Which doesn't go over too well, does it?
Not really.
No.
It's funny that she ascribes it to chance that she came across Halbrand and then Elendil to Miriel, and later on she'll tell Halbrand,
it's not.
There's no chance. It's not chance.
Yes. Yeah. She doesn't even want to call it fate or destiny, right? She says this is something even greater than that.
Yes.
Which is funny because she still tiptoes around it. Like,
yes.
I mean, is this the will of Eru Ilúvatar or not? But she doesn't say it. We'll get to that.
Well, it's funny. She says, nor any other words that men use to speak of forces they lack the conviction to name. And then she doesn't name them either.
I was like, I'm waiting for her to name Ilúvatar, and then she proceeds to not. Yeah, I was a little disappointing in that. Obviously, clearly asking for a ride back to Middle-earth is a big ask. Halbrand steps in, tries to be a bit of a diplomat, as clearly there's some conflict going on. And then that's, like you talked about, the moment where Pharazôn restricts them to palace grounds. Well, you know, as a guest, not a prisoner. I noticed this weird embrace of Elendil by Halbrand. Did you notice that?
Oh, yes.
Yes. But I think we already know that Halbrand is sneaky.
He is sneaky. I had no idea what he was doing until a few seconds later, but obviously it's clear that he was grabbing Galadriel's dagger and doing a very good job of it.
And it's not the first time. It's not the only time he's going to do it. The last time he's going to do it.
Quite the pickpocket here, yeah.
Yeah, I know. What does that say about him?
I know. So he gives the dagger back, which I'm sure earns him some points with Galadriel. And then, conversation between Pharazôn and Miriel.
Yeah.
He mentions not wanting to get back under her father's cloud.
Yes.
Invite your father's cloud back overhead.
Yeah.
That's the line.
So what is that cloud? Well, we know what that cloud is. The cloud is actually a good cloud. It's the cloud of actually respecting the elves and not continuing this dangerous journey into rebellion against the Valar and unfriendship with the elves.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I thought that was interesting is when Pharazôn is explaining to Miriel who Elendil is.
Yeah.
She says he's originally of a noble line,
mm-hmm.
now a sea guardsman with a son.
Yeah.
Yes.
Singular, a son.
Yeah.
Set to follow him into service.
I wonder if they don't know about Anarion or something.
Yeah.
It's
going to be interesting to find out what the deal is with Anarion. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So before we move on, once of a noble line. He actually is of a noble line, isn't he?
It's a weird way of putting it. Originally of a noble line. I think Miriel misspoke there. It would be more correct to say, perhaps, that he is of a originally noble line, that perhaps is no longer considered noble. It's not that he's no longer of the line. Right? He's still of that
His line hasn't changed, He hasn't gone and gotten his DNA replaced.
Yeah, I think the implication is that it's no longer considered noble.
The Lords of Andúnier were a line descended from who again, James?
So Silmarillion,
that's who it was
the only child of the sixth king. And so had the scepter passed to the eldest child, she would have become queen. At that time, it had to go to the male. So had there been absolute primogeniture at the time, then the line actually would have gone down the Lords of the Andúnier, and Elendil would be king.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that becomes important later on. It's interesting, though. So Elendil's father, the last Lord of the Andúnier, turns out to be important in the story in the book.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be in this at all.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Armandil is his name. It'll be interesting to see if Armandil appears at all.
It will be.
Yeah, because he actually does something kind of important.
Yes.
Actually.
Yeah, he does. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, we get this moment with Miriel and Elendil talking about the tree, talking about leaves falling from the tree. Now, this isn't straight out of the lore, but it certainly is reminiscent of it. It kind of jibes with the lore, the idea that as the leaves are falling, it's like the tears of the Valar. Their eyes and judgment are upon us. And she's probing Elendil, right? She's testing him. What do you think? Do you believe this? I think this is the first hint we get that maybe she's not fully in line with Pharazón's anti-elf stance, but we don't see that yet. She's playing it pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
I think she's definitely testing him.
Yeah.
I mean, she's surrounded by the palace guards, so she can't say, hey, buddy, we're on the same side. How about we do this? I mean, she questions him extremely carefully.
Yes.
And then when she hands over the sword, or when she has one of the guards hand over the sword, rather, and says that she has a task for him, I mean, what's that task? Has he got to execute Galadriel?
That's sort of the feeling you get.
That's what I thought at first, yeah. It's interesting, though, when she's asking him about his name.
Yes, I want to get to that for sure.
And says, what do you think it means? Yeah. She's already been told his name, right? Remember, we saw Pharazôn tell her what his name is.
Elendil.
But she asks, and he gives one translation, and she says, but isn't there another translation? One thing I thought was a little odd is when he first says the name Elendil, she says an uncommon name from our western shores, is it not? And what I didn't like about that is it was the name of the fourth king of Númenor.
Right.
That's who his name for. One of her ancestors was called Elendil. So it was a little, I don't quite know what was going on there.
Yeah.
But of course, the important thing for the story is that she then says it doesn't have another translation. And he says elf friend, which of course was the pejorative term for the faithful.
Yeah.
When there was that split in Númenor between the people that were still faithful to the Valar and the Eldar, they were pejoratively called the elf friends.
Yep.
And she asks him, are you? You know, your name is elf friend. Well, are you an elf friend?
She certainly asks that as if it's a bad thing. Right.
Yes.
I mean, that's the tone that she's taking. But again, I think we're seeing the first glimpses of perhaps her trying to really explore who her allies might be. She does say something interesting here, that elves haven't been welcome here since, I think she says, my grandfather's great-grandfather. So we're talking about 5 generations back. And these are Númenorian generations, folks. So we're talking about 1,000 years ballpark. This is a very long time in the Second Age since elves have been welcome here. And so she asks what's a pretty reasonable question. Why break with that precedent? The sea is always right. I thought that was an interesting line. I'm sure Ulmo would be pleased. Ulmo, the Vala of the sea.
Yes, indeed.
I was just going to point out that the grandfather's great-grandfather would be a Dunakor, who is a king that did the things that she claims her grandfather's great-grandfather did, which means they're not skipping any any kings in the line of kings. They're keeping that progression, which I thought was interesting. There's no compression going on, at least with regard to kings between a Dunakor and her.
Right. And, we're just catching up with the very end of the Second Age. I mean, it's clear that we're talking about the last 50 years of the Second Age at this point. So they are compressing the creation of the rings, the existence of the ring wraiths. All of those things are being jammed up into the very last few years of the Second Age.
Yeah, they're being moved, I think. But there's no indication yet that the timeline of Númenor has been compressed at all. It's just things have been moved later than they appear relative to the Númenorians.
Right. And we can start to sort of pinpoint it because, as we know, Miriel is the daughter of Tar Palantir. And, okay, so here in the Amazon version, they have him still alive by the look of it. But actually, in the book, he dies in Second Age 3255. He's the 24th king. So we can sort of pinpoint where they are. If they've got him so that he didn't actually die then, but he's handed it, or had the scepter forcibly taken from him in that sort of time, we're starting to be able to kind of pinpoint where in the Second Age we might be.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a contradiction of the book yet, because she's not actually the ruling queen.
No.
Right.
So it's entirely possible there was a period of time when Tar Palantir was an exile in his own kingdom, as it's put in this show.
Or even if he wasn't, if he was just off on a mission, if he was out in Middle Earth, sailing away and commanding the armies or something, then certainly somebody needs to rule in his stead. And why wouldn't it be Miriel? Yeah.
Just out of interest, I looked up, Adunakor was born 400 years before Pharazôn.
Okay.
So we're talking about
so generations have gotten a little shorter then.
300. Yeah, they continue to shorten throughout.
That's true. We do know they did. Yeah. I mean, certainly they weren't going to be living for 400 years like Elros, but
right. They were only living about 200, 220 at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. And coming to rule later in their lives, but not towards the very end or anything, because they would give up the throne before old age made them incapable of leading, if I remember correctly. They would sort of lay
and then
down
later on, they stopped doing that.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, these kings wouldn't be doing that. I mean, Tar Palantir would, but not certainly not Pharazôn, as we will learn. We are going to go long here, folks, so we apologize. Well, nobody really minds except for us and our editor. So, Jordan, we're sorry. We're going to go a little long. So we're going to separate out the threads with Galadriel separately and Halbrand separately, but coming back to them when they are together, this would be when Halbrand's in his cell and Galadriel approaches him with, just a touch of Galadriel's snark. And they talk about what Galadriel found in the Hall of Lore. Now, I know it feels weird for us to be talking about that before we talk about the Hall of Lore, but I felt like that thread needs to be discussed separately. So she talks about this emblem that he says, I just found it on a dead man. I don't buy that.
No.
Galadriel doesn't buy that. The mark clearly belonged to somebody who once united the Southlands, the proper king. And we learn that is indeed his ancestor. But his ancestor had sworn a blood oath to Morgoth.
Well, could I just say, you said we don't buy that, but maybe we should. Maybe this is one.
Oh, well, that's fair. Okay, he's making it sound though like randomly found it on a dead guy.
But it could be one of those things of sort of hiding in plain sight, right? That he's actually telling the truth. This is just a theory.
No, I buy it. Yeah,
he could be somebody pretending to be.
Oh, but reluctantly, as though, I'm so reluctant about it because I'm going to make sure that you kind of force me into this role first.
So if it turns out he's Sauron, for example, which is a possibility,
that is,
then it makes sense that he would basically say, "Yeah, I found it on a dead man,
a man I killed." But yeah,
exactly, right.
Oops.
We think that's a lie, but maybe that's actually the truth.
Maybe. That would be the kind of truth lie that Sauron would tell, right? The sort of thing that certainly makes him look good.
Mm-hmm.
So just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Look at the way in which Halbrand can turn on the charm.
Boy, he sure can.
He can really turn on the charm. And we know that's something that Sauron in this time and in Númenor, that's something he does.
His ability to change form and take on, an appealing guise certainly still exists. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, Sauron is, again, if we look at the book story of it, Sauron is brought as a prisoner to Númenor. So is Halbrand.
I
don't necessarily think he is Sauron.
But it's fun to speculate.
I've got my own speculation that I didn't put in my notes that you guys don't have there. And so I'm going to actually throw this out there now. I do want to give another hat tip to Phil Dean, our web guy, also extra on the cast there. He came up with this, and it's a theory that immediately rang true to me. Halbrand is going to end up being the king of the army of the dead. He will agree to help Isildur. He will agree to be the good guy. Ooh. And when it comes down to it, the blood oath that his ancestor swore to Morgoth is going to prevent him from doing that, and he's going to betray the good guys.
Ooh.
And thus end up the king of the army of the dead.
Wow.
I absolutely buy that. I'd put money on that one, but that's definitely a hat tip to Phil on that. When I read that, I was like, I am 100% on board with that story.
That would be very cool.
I don't know if it's true, obviously. It's not like as an extra, he's got, this
he overheard somebody talking about it.
No, definitely not.
No, that would be amazing. I still think also Theo. Well, we'll come to that.
Oh man,
we'll talk about the anger issues.
The anger management issues, no doubt about it. One of the other things that made me think that, by the way, was when she's saying, "Come back to Middle Earth," and you're missing an army. Well, I'll get that army. That's not a problem. Let's get that army. So he's going to have an army. He's going to be fighting. And then he's going to say, never mind. I don't know. That's just my speculation. But I love that thread.
I love that.
Such a fascinating storyline. But I think if I do have one gripe about Halbrand, it's that they aquagorned him very much. That he's
reluctant king.
The reluctant king. He even looks a lot like Viggo.
Right.
I mean, and charming, but like quietly charming, not gravitas like Elendil, right? I mean, he's just this sort of every guy. He just happens to be much more handsome and, charming than the every guy.
Mm-hmm. And couldn't they have at least given him a shower when, they shoved him into a prison? Yeah. I mean,
they gave Galadriel some nice new clothes. This guy's still looking like, wearing the rags that he was wearing on the raft.
It still looks kind of skanky.
He does. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get to his separate thread here in just a little bit, but I think it's time for us to talk about Galadriel and Númenor. So we're going to go back in time a little bit on the show to talk about her solo thread. So she escapes. The guards, none of whom are Phil, sadly, these are speaking parts, talk about how, somebody's got to tell Pharazôn, I did it last time. Oh, that was a dog. So a little bit of humor, cute stuff. I love the moment where she's like scouring the ships, like, okay, which one am I going to steal? Which one am I going to steal? And then Elendil's behind her like, well, I'd take that one.
Exactly.
Not that one. That one won't get you anywhere.
That one will get you there a lot faster. That one's barely going to get you out of the harbor. Yeah, good stuff.
Uh-huh. It's a great moment, isn't it? Because he succeeds in really surprising Galadriel when eventually he speaks to her in Quenya. I believe it's Quenya. That's right, James?
It is. It is indeed.
Yes.
I mean, that really, really surprises her. Because all she's seen so far is that she is disliked or treated with suspicion or even contempt by those around her. And then suddenly, here is Elendil, who is actually speaking to her in Quenya, which is astonishing.
A friend, an ally.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, happens only after she threatens his life. I thought that was a really great moment where she pulls the dagger and is about to kill him. And he's just as cool as the other side of the pillow.
He does not flinch, does he?
He is just so chill.
So you could kill me, but I could still get out a shout if you do that. And that would be bad because then you'd end up in chains again. And how is that going to benefit you?
And then, that's when he breaks into the Quenya.
Which is a lovely opportunity for him to then explain that there are a group of people that are still faithful to still speak Elvish and that they're mostly found in the western part of the island, which is a very book consistent thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned before about the star shape.
Yes.
And it's sort of got these different arms, if you like, and one of them is towards the west, and that's where this population of the faithful and still Elvish-speaking people are.
Mm-hmm. Have you noted that apparently it's only a quarter of a day's ride away? How teeny tiny is Númenor?
4 hours on horseback. How far, or maybe 6 hours if we're talking about a quarter of a full day. I was thinking like, a quarter of a daylight day. But 4 to 6 hours on horseback, how far are you going to get?
I mean, it's probably 200 miles.
Well, no horse is going to gallop for 200 miles, just FYI.
No. Horses traveled about 35 miles daily in those times. Most of them travel only about 25 miles a day nowadays. 8 hours, you might be able to get about 30 miles. So you're probably not going to be able to get much more than, maybe 30 miles in like a 6 or 8 hour ride, if that.
Yeah, but he says quarter of a day's ride.
That's true. I mean, so it'd be much less than that in theory, maybe 20 miles.
Yeah.
Guess Númenor is smaller than we thought, or the horses are really, really fast.
They're Númenorian horses.
They are Númenorian horses. They're special horses. Sometimes the nits can be too small to bother picking.
Mm-hmm. But look at Galadriel's joy when she's riding.
I know. It's so neat to see her smiling because she's been a pretty angry lady for a long time now, hasn't she?
She's been grumpy Galadriel, but right now she's happy Galadriel.
She really is. And that horse was absolutely gorgeous. That white horse with the blue eyes. The camera work I thought was really stunning. Just a neat shot.
And shout out to whoever designed that dress.
Yes.
Because the way in which it flows when the horse is galloping, that was a sight just by itself. It was absolutely stunning.
Just breathtaking stuff. When it comes to cinematography, there are a lot of beautiful shots in this particular episode, and this certainly was one of them. Great stuff. So they end up at the Hall of Lore, and we learn that it was built by Elros. So we take a look at that tapestry, right? We see a very realistic looking Elrond. Like, wow, that Elrond really does look like Robert Aramayo. And then Elros, of course, they were twin brothers. For those of you who are still catching up to the lore, Elros and Elrond were given the choice to be counted among elves or among men. Elros, of course, chose to be among men and was given that long life and led Númenor for some 400 years before his eventual death. So that's when we get a mention of the current king's, unnamed, loyalty to the Eldar. And again, I keep hoping that it'll be Tar Palantir, but whoever it is, we know that he's loyal to the Eldar. And what a moment that was. Lloyd Owen, the actor for Lendil, really let that hang. Oh, so he was loyal to the elves, and 3-4 beats before is.
Yes.
Fantastic. Absolutely chills kind of moment. Great stuff.
And that's where we get the line about him being in exile in his own kingdom.
Yes. Such a great reference. And that's, I think, where we really get the idea that they're setting up the twist, that Miriel is going to turn out to be loyal to her father. She's just playing it carefully because of Pharazôn's control of the people who are very anti-elf at this point. Yeah.
And of course, now we get the reveal.
Yes.
Which came much sooner than I imagined.
I know, me too. I had no idea it was going to come in episode 3.
This was not surprising. We talked about it in the last episode of the show.
Certainly made sense.
That if you rotate the sigil 90 degrees, it looks an awful lot like Mordor. And it was just interesting that the reveal came this quickly. I think.
Quickly, yeah.
Yes, and the fact that Galadriel didn't work it out is interesting.
I know.
Look at that.
That's a little bit of a facepalm moment. You've had thousands of years to figure this out. You never bothered to just rotate it 90 degrees? That is definitely a facepalm moment for sure. But of course, that freaks Galadriel right the heck out. I mean, she's immediately realizes what this means. This is far worse news than we thought.
Right.
You know, he's been directing his orcs ever since the fall of Morgoth to go to Mordor. And so now the entire Southlands are in danger. The rest of Middle-earth is in danger. And she's right. She's absolutely right. This is bad news indeed.
It's interesting that she can read Black speech.
Yes. I thought that was interesting. And that's when we learn that it's not just a map, but an entire plan.
Right. Yeah.
It's the backup plan, right? In case of Morgoth's fall. So this plan goes way back. This is something that Morgoth, thought of long before he was ended, before he was cast out of the doors of night at the end of the First Age. Wow. This
idea of a symbol that's actually a map leading the followers of Morgoth to where they need to go has interesting parallels to The Stranger, who is trying to depict a constellation.
Yeah, a map in a way.
That Nori wants to use to guide the stranger to where the stranger wants to go.
To where he belongs. Huh. To where there are others like him.
Right.
Not saying it's the same thing, but it's an interesting parallel.
It is. Well, it's like the Adar parallel you talked about earlier, Sara, where you've got, okay, yeah, sure, that's a direct reference to that particular character, but look at all the other father references and, father figure type references. Well, it's the same thing here. This is just another parallel, and it's a really interesting story parallel. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's touch real briefly on Halbrand by himself in Númenor, just because it's such a fun moment, right? So he wants a job at the blacksmith. Please, oh, please, give me a job. Give me a job. You're not a member of the guild. Sorry. You're not a member of the union. You got to pay your dues. You got to get, you can't be an apprentice. You got to go all the way.
He doesn't have the crest. Yep.
Work your way up. You got to join, local 227. Yeah.
Why is he so keen to forge?
Right. And look at all the things he can promise to do. I mean, we're not talking about, I can put a few things together. He's promising that he
cast
can
an anchor. Yeah.
Right.
That's
he
a
can
big
do
task.
the best stuff. Right. He can do the best work. I wonder how he learned that.
How did he get that skill? Where will that come into play? And could it have anything to do with the really amazing sword that we saw in the last episode? I don't know.
I still don't trust Halbrand.
No.
I think he's dodgy.
I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. And with my bad back, I shouldn't be throwing anybody.
I noticed in the second viewing that at the very opening of the palace scene, Pharazôn is talking to the very gentleman that Halbrand is going to steal the crest from.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. Indeed.
I don't know if that will be important, but presumably that particular blacksmith is important because he's talking to the Chancellor in the palace when Halbrand first comes in with Galadriel.
Yeah,
right, which
absolutely.
is clearly going to get Halbrand into some bother when it turns out that he's beaten up Pharazôn's mate.
Yeah, that is going to cause him some issues. But before that happens, of course, his conversation starts out not so well. We get that low man reference, and I want to talk about that in a second because it comes up a number of times. Then he buys everybody a drink, and not surprisingly, everything goes well for a little while,
Where did he get the money?
I was wondering that. I think he stole the money from somebody else, maybe even Elendil himself.
Yeah, I wish we'd seen him lift that money because it seems odd. The first time I saw it, I'm like, where did he get the money? I imagine he could have pickpocketed it, but it would have been nice to see him do that.
Like we saw him pickpocket the dagger, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's not like he's earning any money, and it's unlikely that he has any. And even if he did, wouldn't it be...
He wouldn't be carrying Númenorian money.
He wouldn't be carrying Númenorian currency, right. I don't think Southland money is going to be any good here, if they even have currency.
Your low money's no good here.
That's right. Yeah, so he buys drinks. Everybody's pretty happy about it, and he steals the guild emblem and heads out, and we get the low man reference again. So let's talk about low man, okay? The Númenorians, we know, are the high men. They are the houses of the Edain, the three houses that allied with the elves to defeat Morgoth at the end of the First Age. And then, of course, the middlemen, the Rohirrim are a good example, are men that are related to, but not actually members of, the three houses of the Edain. But tell me a little bit about the low men, James. What makes a man a low man?
Yeah, the low men are really the people that sided with Morgoth. So we have the Haradrim and the Easterlings and
Okay, so they're related then. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but there was a man, there were two men, I think Bor and Ulfang were the ones. Those are the names that come to mind.
Ulfang, yep.
Ulfang was the one who, I think it was his descendants that would be considered the low men.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who betrayed the elves, in the big battle, turning and attacking their flank when he was supposed to be on their side. Definitely not the good people. So he is the low man. That's the reference to that. And then we get that incredible fight, right? I mean, he's surrounded. He takes the one shot. You think, okay, maybe it's over. And then you get the anger management issues, James.
Yeah.
Yes.
Orc smash.
I mean, he does ask them not to do this.
He does. You don't want to do this. I'm telling you.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'd already wondered if he was Theo's father just because we know he's running away from something. He's from the right region. He's running away. But once I saw that anger, the same thing we saw when Theo was willing to basically take to the floorboards because of a mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought there's some like father, like son.
There's a lack of proportionality here that I find just a little troubling.
Yeah, but isn't he a skilled fighter?
Oh, he is. Yes. What a moment that was. Just absolutely brutal fighting, but incredibly effective fighting. And then, unfortunately, it ends with, his arrest. And then we go back to the other thread. So that's really it on Halbrand solo, right? We talked about the rest of his thread as it relates to Galadriel and that amazing moment in the cell when we learn that he is, in fact, the king. So I think, you remember last week we were talking about the young man in the bar, the pub there in Bronwyn's town who says to Arondir, one day our true king is going to come back and pry us out from under your pointy boots. This is the guy they're talking about at that moment.
Yep.
Yeah. So, we thought it might have been Morgoth or Sauron, but it turns out it's probably Halbrand, who might be Sauron.
Or the person who Halbrand killed.
That's right. Exactly. That's a good point. I like that.
I don't know if it's true, but
no, I mean, I'm still leaning towards the King of the Army of the Dead, but that's a good backup. If I can't take that, I will go with that one. That'll be my alternate. So we are running short, but we still have two good storylines to cut through. One of them is the Isildur storyline that starts out with these young sailors on the ship, on a Númenorian vessel. They're sea guardsmen, sort of in their final semester of training, if you will. And we see Isildur looking wistfully towards the land when he's called out by a shipmate. We get that gorgeous shot of the coastline. We get the cadets hauling those landing craft to the shore. And you can sort of see that camaraderie of young men in military service, bragging and putting each other down a little bit as they talk about getting into the Sea Guards and all of that.
One of my favorite bits of that is his friend is called Valandil.
That's right. So tell us a little bit then about the significance of that name, Valandil.
So Valandil was the name of Isildur's son. Mm-hmm. And so we get this idea that perhaps he named his son after one of his friends from his sailing days.
Which is great. And what does Valandil mean? It means friend of the Valar, doesn't it? Just like Elendil is the lover of the stars or friend of the stars, elf friend.
Only a name that one of the faithful would give to their child.
I would imagine so, because Farazan and his people aren't exactly friends of the Valar. So
not anymore.
If you think you are, you're wrong. Manwë wants a word, right? Wants to talk to everybody these days.
So I picked up one other name, actually. Yeah. The son of the captain, it appeared to be. I think he was called Imrahil.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. That was an interesting one.
Because that's a really interesting choice, because as we know, there is an Imrahil later on in The Lord of the Rings.
Right.
He plays a really quite important part. So that's kind of interesting that they've chosen to use that name. I mean, obviously, it's not the same person. Of course it's not.
No.
But still, it's nice to have
Tolkien reuses a lot of names like that. It's true.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Imrahil, of course, in The Lord of the Rings, the Third Age, he's the Prince of Dol Amroth and does indeed play a very important role. So we get this interesting moment that is, well, a break from the lore, but, it's not a killer break. It's one that's like, okay, I can buy this edition because Tolkien might not have written it down. The fact that Isildur has a sister, that Elendil has the two sons and a daughter named Eärien, and she does arrive on scene. We get that great little shot with her. It's brief, but it establishes her as a character and as Isildur's sister.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I mean, Tolkien wasn't always awesome at recording the female line.
No.
And so I can accept that. I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm. You often find Tolkien family trees produced by others from the text that will say things like, and 3 other unnamed daughters, and stuff like that. So it's completely consistent.
But of course, later in that thread, we come back to an evening scene in the city at night with Isildur, Eärien, and Elendil. Let's talk a little bit about that, right? There's a sense of real hostility in the crowd, mockery. They're doing that little puppet show, and they're sort of making fun of Galadriel. And clearly, the bulk of the people here are not going to be on the side of this family when it comes to their position with the elves.
Mm-hmm.
But we just get this wonderful family moment then.
We do,
when
don't we?
Kind of
it's
the
great.
Focus gets on. There's a mention I thought was interesting of the relatives from the north side. So again, back to this star pattern.
Yeah.
The northern part of Númenor, apparently relatives are going to come for the graduation ceremony, I'm guessing. For
in 9 days' time, that's right.
Exactly. And we find out, we get the mention of Anarion.
Yes.
Who, another son, Isildur's brother, who seems estranged At least from Elendil.
Right, and there's this issue of the West, of course, where Elendil says to Isildur, well, you can see he's kind of, hang on a minute, is that what's going on? It's not really, obviously, revealed to us exactly what's going on in this moment, but he says to Isildur that there is nothing for us on the Western shores. Right. I mean, is this a reference? Has Anarion gone sailing off to try and find the Western shores? Or, I mean, really?
Oh, you mean perhaps to go, out to try to make it to Valinor?
I'm not sure what's going on there.
He says our Western shores.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I took that just to mean there's no reason to go back to the west of Númenor.
Yeah.
He says because the next line is the past is dead.
Right.
So I get the impression that Elendil's decided to maybe reconcile a bit to the King's men and kind of do his dutiful thing in the city.
Or at least publicly, right? Like, I mean, recognizing there's no point to being publicly outed as an elf friend.
So maybe Anarion is a hardline elf friend.
Maybe.
Not even willing to compromise.
Well,
he's staying in the West. He's staying in the West.
And not willing to work with the Sea Guards because they're doing the will of Pharazôn and the people there.
Right.
Yeah.
And Elendil's saying we need to move past, the past is dead. We need to
work within the system.
Yeah.
Reform it from within, and then Arian's not buying that. I can go with that.
Yeah.
One thing I was puzzled by is why does Isildur seem so reluctant to graduate and be a sailor, given he seemed so enthusiastic in the scene where he was doing the sail training? Is he actually wanting to be a sailor or not?
I don't know. It does seem that he's had some issues in the past about, actually finishing things, right? I mean, there's
got kicked out of for horse training or whatever it was.
Right, yes. Right, exactly. Like, well, that wasn't my fault. No, that wasn't my fault either,
I love the fact the siblings back each other up, though.
Yes,
when Arian says, actually, that one wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
Issel's right.
Such a real
Issel's
moment.
right, she says. Yeah. And she's still eating her food. She's just, it was wonderful. Wonderfully written dialogue, wonderfully acted. Yeah, so I love this.
It's such a family moment, as you're saying, James, because you've got Dad first shouting at one of them, and then he's shouting at the other one, and both siblings are looking at him like, Dad.
He's like, I'm not talking to you. And then he says to the other one, I'm not.
Which I have actually had to make that exact statement before. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to her. Yeah, that was very real. So we get a brief moment when Eärien is called away to get some news, which we'll mention briefly. But that gives Elendil and Isildur a chance to talk one-on-one, right? And we get this conversation basically about Isildur's doubts, but also about Elendil's, I guess, wounds, if you will, right? I mean, I thought that was a really interesting moment that I hope we see more of in terms of exposition. And I think it's related to what you talked about earlier, James, about this idea that the past is dead and there's nothing for us on the Western shores. I think that's deeply connected to that.
It hasn't been brought up in the show yet, but we've seen it in some interviews and so on, that Isildur's mother, Arian's mother has died.
Right.
And so Elendil's a single parent. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a reference to that, him still getting over that.
Right. So C hasn't managed to cure his pain, if you like.
Yes,
he says to his son that, the cure, that C can actually, wash away your pain. But, Isildur looks at him and says, well, that's not worked for you, Dad, has it?
Exactly.
And I suspect that's the pain of the loss of the wife and mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, the past is dead. There's no point in going back there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why he doesn't want to go back. Maybe it's nothing to do with the faithful.
Maybe
it's just to do with the memories of the life he had with his wife. Yeah,
that's a very good point. Well, I don't know if this is going to be relevant to the storyline later on, but we do learn that Eärien makes the Builders Guild. So congratulations to her, I suppose.
I think it will become relevant.
I think it will become relevant. Yeah, I know. Not too many throwaway lines.
Although, of course, she does seem to have been rejected the first time round.
Yeah.
And when we don't know why.
And they don't normally reconsider, but Isildur talked her into trying again. Yeah.
Right. So, I wonder what persuaded them the second time.
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, I think this is going to be important. And obviously she's now going to be part of the guild, the bit that Halbrand hasn't managed to do.
A different guild, I imagine, right?
Yeah, sure. But it's becoming part of the guild. Yeah, you have to, you have to actually apprentice for. I mean, this goes back, of course, into how guilds used to work back in history. That, if you wanted to actually work within a certain trade, you had to apprentice first, and then you were made a member of the guild, and then you were allowed to actually work within that particular trade.
Exactly. Well, folks, we're out of time, so we're going to skip the Harfoots. Just kidding. We're going to talk about the Harfoots next. You should have seen the looks on James and Sarah's faces.
Harfoots.
Oh, yeah.
Harfoot. So we get the time of festival, but with some seriously foreboding music.
Yes.
Did anybody else know?
And some scary costumes. I mean, I think there was at least one warg in that costume, maybe an orc.
Yeah,
was it a Chihuawarg? That's what I want to know.
Yes, maybe. Maybe.
And then in case it hasn't been drilled into your head enough, you hear it about 20 times. Nobody goes off trail and nobody walks alone.
Yeah, except, you know what? Yeah, that's all very well singing that and saying it over and over again, but there seems to be no real concern about leaving someone behind if they can't actually,
None at all. Right. I was about to say nobody walks alone unless you're too slow, in which case walk alone.
Yeah, in which case you're walking alone. Tough luck.
Brutal.
I think it's actually a threat. It's like, when you say to somebody, nobody say anything and nobody will get hurt.
Yeah.
Right? They're saying nobody goes off trail and nobody walks alone. Right? You could view it almost as a threat. As long as nobody goes off trail, then nobody will walk alone. If somebody walks off trail, they're going to walk alone.
Yeah.
Right. Ooh.
It does seem very unfair when it comes to Largo.
It really does. I had thought for sure they would change things up a little bit, but
it's even worse. Later on,
Oh, yeah.
we're told that the people that fall behind will be carried with us in our hearts and in our memories.
Right. Yeah,
so they're actually
they're
going to physically be left behind.
That's
But,
right. Wow.
Exactly. We will wait for you, but not really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we'll think of you.
That's right. Nice knowing you. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thoughts and prayers, by the way. Thoughts
exactly.
and prayers.
Oh, that is brutal.
Right?
Brutal. So, of course, we transition from that shot to the very on-point shot of Nori's dad, who's still injured, and Marigold, who's worried, and we get a really tender moment with them.
Yeah.
We learn that they're headed to the Grove, and it's a named place, and it makes me wonder if maybe they're migratory, as you might say, between these two fixed places. Are they?
It might be seasonal.
Yeah, seasonally or on a period of years or whatever, going back and forth between the Grove and this place that they're in right now. And if that's the case, even if they fall behind, maybe they can figure out how to get there. But yeah, it's still pretty disturbing, as we'll get to when we get to the book.
We also find out in that conversation, just a little throwaway thing, we find out that Nori's mother was named Rose.
Yes.
Which, given that her name is Eleanor, I thought was an interesting...
Yes.
Because, of course, Sam does
Easter egg.
marry a Rose, and his daughter's name is Nori. Well, Eleanor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Properly Eleanor.
And it's quite clear that the female Harfoots seem to have flower names. Whereas,
yes, they do.
For the male Harfoots, it's a totally different. But for the females, it
seems random, right? Largo, Sadok.
Yeah, exactly. But all of the
very Hobbit-like.
The Lady Harfoots all have flower names.
Marigold and Poppy and Nori, So speaking of Nori and Poppy, right? Nori goes and approaches the book, is stopped by Poppy, who seems to be her conscience, tries to argue with her, but to no avail because, well, Nori has some blackmail on her. And so she eventually decides to go ahead and keep watch. And she does the watch thing pretty well, right? She alerts Nori to Sadok's arrival. Oh, you're going to go into your thing and get your book, huh? Really loud so Nori can hide. It's cleverly done.
And those wonderful directions, I'll be right back. Oh, we need to the left.
You mean it's left?
I'll be straight there. Yeah.
I'll go straight over to there. Yeah, it was really nicely done. I thought that was super cute.
I am loving Poppy and Nori. I think they're wonderful.
I know, their chemistry's great, isn't it?
Right. There's this fantastic little moment before they actually do this going in and grabbing the star map thing, where you can see the difference between them, where Nori says it's about hard sense and heart sense, whereas Poppy says, no, it's common sense and nonsense.
Yes.
Which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, the two of them, they're clearly very different. And yet, if one of them's going to get into trouble, the other one is going to follow.
Yeah. And help. Yeah.
And help, yes.
And that is when we transition to the festival when Sadok speaks, and we get this really brutal Darwinian sort of thing.
Right.
Well, even before that, the opening is so much like the party scene
Oh, yes,
in the
isn't
Peter
it?
Jackson films.
Isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Most agreeable, honourable Harfoots. Cheers.
Yes, cheers. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Not on one gross if you gathered here today. Yeah, you really expected some of these the similarities, but my goodness, this was when my jaw dropped.
turns.
The idea that
Yeah.
these gentle, kind little Harfoots, well, will carry in your hearts and memories, because we didn't have time to actually wait for you in this world.
Right. I think it's interesting. With the Harfoots, we get a lot of rituals and ceremonies.
Yes.
And they are really an important part of their culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I like this idea that's kind of what everything is built around, is all of these ceremonies and rituals and laws. They have laws. Not just rules, but laws. I think that's really interesting. But it's the way in which they speak of their dead. And the book is called The Book of the Left Behinds, which is a rather nice euphemism, if you like.
Yes.
But also they call them, Sadok calls them into the circle. The dead calls them into the circle. And it's really an interesting ritual that they have around this.
And you can see the impact it has on them, right? I mean, you watch Poppy as they talk about that one family, that entire family. I think it was of 5.
It's her family.
There's 2 things I was going to say that. Most of the people that get named have her surname.
Yeah.
And secondly, the other thing that I noticed is she's sitting alone.
Yes.
The others are sitting in family groups. She's the only one left.
Oh, my goodness. I hadn't noticed that. You're absolutely right.
Chance and Yarrow Proudfellow, plus 3 children. That is Poppy's family.
Family, yeah.
Yeah.
She's the only one left.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice until the second time round that she's sitting alone.
Right.
I didn't catch that either.
Yeah, that's her entire family that were caught in an avalanche, and that's it, they're gone. But you notice as well, and this is, again, it's part of the slight kind of brutality of the way in which they kind of live, is that when they're migrating, poor old Poppy has to pull all of her own stuff herself.
Yeah.
All by herself. There is no help. You either keep up or you don't, and that's it.
And she would have been at the back of the caravan had not the Brandyfoots been assigned to the back of the caravan.
Right.
Yes.
And we need to come on to the fact
that
that is the punishment that is handed out, that they will be at the back.
Of course, that means you're first in the line to fall behind, right?
Exactly. And no one's going to notice.
No.
Because if you're right at the back
last,
and everybody else is ploughing on forwards, if you fall behind...
They aren't going to stop, because we know the rules. You don't stop.
Yeah, so no one's going to notice. No one comes back to help. There doesn't seem to be that kind of sense of helping others. It's all about survival, and you need to survive for yourself. I mean, they even talk about how we don't have friends. We don't have friends, they say.
I found that a little shocking. There's such a strength in numbers that it really kind of seemed to me to be conflicting with what they've talked about before. The mom talks about how, elves have their forests and men have their fields of grain. And, we've got each other and we're safe and all of this. And you're thinking, we don't have each other. We have ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really brutal.
Exactly. When there's that bit at the end, Marigold says, we don't have friends.
Right.
When the stranger's there and Nori says he's a friend. We don't have friends. Well, you're not kidding. Not only from outside of the Harfoots, but not really inside of the Harfoots. Not friends who help each other.
Except for Nori and Poppy. That's what they stand out so much. They're the one example we see of friendship.
Right, exactly. So you can see how important Nori and her family are to Poppy, who has no other family.
No. That is a tremendous catch, and I can't believe I didn't notice that. Thank you, both of you, for pointing that out, that not only was that her family, but that then she was sitting alone in that event. And, all I was focused on was how she was clearly moved and the tears that she was shedding as these names were called. But wow, that makes all of this even more brutal. The fact that she would have been at the back of the caravan had it not been for the Brandyfoots means they were willing to leave her behind now, because there's no way she could have kept up either. There was already a gap between her and the caravans in front before the Brandyfoots started breaking down.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the stranger finding the map, though.
Yeah, definitely. So, he grabs that page that Nori had left there by, on the side of the festivities, and he sees the constellation that he drew earlier. And so he takes it over to the light to get a better look, right?
Yeah. But he's really not good with fire, is he?
No, he's not. No, he's not. For a guy who understands fire.
He doesn't understand fire.
Maybe he's just not used to the fact that fire is normally hot.
Mana ure, mana ure.
Mana ure.
And it burns, burns, burns. My map's on fire. My map's on fire.
Oh, no. I love it. I absolutely love it. That is brilliant stuff. We're channeling the PPP right here as we start to sing. My map's on fire.
Well, I do apologize, first of all, because I've got a voice that sounds like a cat being rubbed with a cheese grater, but I just couldn't actually resist doing that.
Folks, don't try that at home.
Your cat will not enjoy that. We don't advise you to do it.
No, please don't. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so the page does burn. And now, of course, we get chaos as this sort of comical scene of him stumbling through the camp and gathering all the things about him. So he ends up becoming even almost more giant than before. Now they've discovered him, of course, and he calls out for Nori.
Yes.
Which normally would be sweet, but right now, Nori's probably thinking, why did you call my name?
Yep. This is not good. This is not good.
No, now she's on trial, and quite literally on trial. This is not just, oh, let's talk to this young woman who's caused some problems. This is, you've broken the law, right? We have a law, and the penalty for what she's done is to be decaravanned.
What a word.
Yep.
It's a nice euphemism for turned out to die alone.
Right, exactly. It's exile.
Excommunicated, yep.
Excommunication, yes, absolutely.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
For a group of people that are charming and sweet and cute, they are just...
Break our laws, you're out. Wow.
Yeah. But we do get that really cool moment in the trial about Sadok when he talks about, people, stars turning into people. Because I've never heard of that, but I've heard of people being turned into stars. Yeah, there's our Eärendil moment.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I would love to know how he found that out.
I know. How would a Harfoot of all people have heard that?
How did he hear the story of Eärendil?
Yes, it's got to be a pictogram in his book then.
It must be. It must be. In the end, of course, Sadok does rule in the favor of mercy, kind of. I wouldn't call it much of a mercy, right? You're not decaravan, but you might as well be.
Yeah, but it punishes the whole family, not just...
Right.
Yeah, it's not just Nori. It's the entire family.
All right, Nori, we could just, ban you, but now we're going to kill you and your whole family.
Yes.
Right.
Wow.
It does put them at greatest risk, of course, by going at the back. Wow. What a moment that is. We know that they have been essentially sentenced to exile and on their own. How are they going to possibly survive?
Right.
Yeah.
It's really, I know we've said it, but it's really brutal.
It is. There's a brutality to it that is stark and unexpected.
When we saw them in the first 2 episodes, they seemed so cheerful and happy and full of life and rosy cheeks and eating fruit and
very unified. They did seem like they were all working together.
I would love to ask an anthropologist whether this is typical or atypical of these sorts of communities.
For like a migratory or nomadic type community. Yeah.
Right. That would be really interesting. Yeah.
Completely different note. I do want to point out that during the trial, if you like, we find out Nori's middle name.
Yes.
And it's just a funny inside joke, I think.
Okay, reference it because I didn't get it.
Okay, her middle name is Kellermark.
Yes.
Yeah.
The actress's name is Markella.
Yes.
Oh, that's
They've taken
right.
They've taken the actress's name, split it in two, and flipped the sides.
Yes.
Yeah, from Markella to Kellermark.
I wondered about that because I didn't feel
I don't know
very
why
Hobbity.
they did.
Doesn't feel very Harfootish, does it? But yeah, that's kind of funny.
That is funny. That is funny. Good catch, though. Thank you, James. I wondered why that was there, and I felt it had to be some sort of, Easter egg somehow. Because it didn't fit the Harfoot sort of naming.
Funny that it's not a Tolkien Easter egg. It's a cast a cast member Easter egg.
Exactly.
Kind of fun.
Yep. So then we get the migration itself. Obviously, the Brandyfoots are already far, far, far behind when all of a sudden the cart starts to move on its own and a very tall person shows up. The stranger.
Yes.
And what's the word that comes out of his mouth? Did anyone catch what he says?
Friend.
Friend.
I love that.
The first thing he says is Nori.
Yeah.
He's picked up Nori earlier on when he's in the camp.
Yes.
He says
Right.
Nori. The next word he says is friend. He's obviously picked that up for when Nori says, he's my friend.
Mm-hmm.
When she stops him from attacking Poppy and is like, friend. Yes. He not only has picked up on the word, but on its meaning enough so that he now is helping.
Which interestingly comes back to what we were saying before about Poppy and Nori being the only friends amongst the Harfoots. Now they've got a third. Yeah, understands.
I love it.
Yes, and this one will be very handy because you get the feeling you could pull a cart a heck of a lot easier than the others could.
You definitely get that idea, and it'll give Largo a chance to let that broken bone heal. So
Right. So, I mean, it looks like this is their opportunity to actually survive the migration.
Yeah. maybe to run ahead of the rest of them and be like, well, fine, catch up to us.
Yeah, up yours.
I know, seriously, survive this.
Yeah, yeah.
Surprisingly, or not surprisingly as the case may be, that does conclude another episode of the Rings of Power Wrap-Up. But please be sure to join us again next time when, well, hopefully we don't get an episode named after a guy who's only there for 5 seconds.
And let's also hope that if we get any more strange creatures coming on stage, that they're slightly better presented to us than the Chihuawarg was.
The Chihuawarg, absolutely.
Indeed.
I agree.
Okay, so thanks to the team that helps us get this show out there every week. Our speedy editor, Jordan Rannells, our barleyman, Becca Davis, social media manager, Casey Hilsey, and website guru, Phil Dean of Fame.
Website guru and Númenorian extra, Phil Dean.
Speaking of the website, give us a visit at ringswrapup.com. We've got show notes, our online storefront, and eventually, assuming there are any, some outtakes.
Of course, if there are any.
We're perfect.
Why would there be outtakes? We're absolute professionals. So you'll also want to take a look at our library page. This show may be about the Amazon adaptation, but the three of us are first and foremost fans of the books. So we've provided links for you to get all the lore. We do get a few pennies from the purchases you make there, so thank you in advance.
Indeed. And one last thing as always, folks, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, what bug-eyed animal you want to show up for the next episode to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want a chance to have your actual voice heard, well, you can send us audio of you asking your question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
But be sure to send a question to Barliman too. Now, we've been able to rely on Barliman lately, but we do get a lot of mail. So we'll get to you when we can. Your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
As always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Namari, friends.